All right. We've got Real Water Sports has some exciting news, actually. They've just added five surfboards to inventory that are pretty beautiful rarities. These are Gary Linden Twinsers that are made out of agave.
Yeah, buddy. I've got one of those twinsers, those Gary Linden agave twinsers. Mine's 6'6". It's wonderful. I've been riding it a lot lately. Um, summertime's here. What the main thing that I like about a board that's that large, say 6'6", with, sort of a speed egg outline is my ability to kind of move around lineups and get in and out of crowded situations. South swells where I surf, they often come in kind of like in a not a deep water situation, but a situation where sets can catch you inside if you're not moving quickly. And if you're on a chippy little, thin little 6 foot tri fin, you're not going to have the flotation that's required to kind of get out there, flip around. We've had some pretty solid south swell, 6 feet larger. And so it's been great on the 6'6" agave Linden Twinser because I can catch the wave. And oh, by the way, I have tons of speed, tons of maneuverability. One of the things that the board does really well is it has a lot of velocity, it has a lot of movement through the water. And I just love that. Like that's sort of the type of board and surfing that I grew up on. A board that carries you around, that doesn't require me to wank up my arms to get up to
Mhm.
speed.
Well, Linden has been working with agave for a long time, and I've spoken to him about it, but it was like he was growing stalks and then he was cutting them up and gluing them up into blanks, and it was, a laborious process. And it was a reflection of balsa becoming more expensive and harder to come by. But he's recently linked up with, I met this kid 10 years ago who was trying to build agave blanks and has finally kind of figured out or found a supplier of the agave and has kind of streamlined the back end of the process to get the raw materials. So now he's able to partner with Gary and supply Gary with blanks. So Gary's not doing all the process of the blank itself. And so that's why now it's something that Gary's believed in forever and just didn't have the material supply to really scale up to deliver them to all of his customers, let's say. So now he has that opportunity, and the material speaks for itself. And it's beautiful. It looks similar to the old balsa boards, and they all kind of age slightly differently. There's a lot of variation from one blank to the next, but they're really beautiful boards that are incredibly functional. And this is your opportunity to get one through Real Water Sports because, like I said, they were just kind of one-offs for a long period of time, and Real's bringing a few in.
Yeah, look, I think the thing to do too is check out the Real Water Sports YouTube channel because Trip Foreman did a great review on the board. And frankly, the one that he reviewed, I was looking at it and going, man, that one looks pretty sick. Like mine's pretty much identical, but yeah, do yourself a favor if you're interested, and you should be, in these agave twinsers from Gary Linden. Go check out the review that Trip did. I think Real Water Sports has a YouTube channel, so
They do, yeah.
maybe you'll have a link in our show notes.
Yeah, exactly. Or go to YouTube and Real Water Sports. And then also, if you buy one of those, hook yourself up with some NVS fins to go with it. NVS has incredible sets of Twinser fins from Stu Kenson, and a wide range of other things. They've got the Apex series fins that are guaranteed for a lifetime, built out of the G10 laminate, and something for everyone.
Yeah, look, I don't have a Twinser, and I have quite a few. I probably have four Twinsers in my catalog right now, and they all have the NVS Stu Kenson Twinser set in them. So Stu's known for his Twinsers, so he's the expert, and I yield to those guys. Tell me what
Oh,
to ride,
completely.
and they just put
Yeah.
them in there, and boom, away we
I don't
go.
know. I don't know
Speed and
where I'd be without
flow.
them.
Love it. I love my Twinsers. And you know
Yeah,
what? It's
you do.
great. You know, one of the wonderful things about Twinsers, for me, backside on twin fins has been an issue for whatever reason. I don't know. There's just not that center sort of stable centering fin that a tri fin or a single fin gives you when you're powering that back foot through a backside wave. And the Twinser, for whatever reason, has just as much stability and it's I get a sense of confidence. Where on the twin fin, I would be like nursing it a little bit. On the twinser, I'm banking the living shit out of this bottom turn and doing this incredible vertical backside turn right at about, for me, it would be at about 3 or 4 o'clock, which is about as vertical. It wasn't at 12 o'clock. It wasn't at 1 o'clock. My vertical turns are at about 3 or 4 o'clock.
Nap time.
Yes, that's what they look like. When you see me do a vertical turn, it's nappy. It's a nappy turn.
Nap time turns. Yeah, so grab yours, whether it's a twinser, single fin. I mean, they've got collabs with Skip Fry for single fins. They've got twin fins from everybody and thrusters as well on surfnvs.com.
As we see some movement at the takeoff zone, it's Kelly Slater grabbing rail.
Yeah, guy. David, welcome to the podcast. It is the Spit podcast. David Lee Scales, Scott Bass, talking all things surf, June 18th, 2025. David, good morning.
Good morning, Scott. I wanted to report back to you. I went and did a live show with Ricky Carroll and Justin Quintal last week, and you gave me a list of things to ask Ricky about. And I hit everything on your list.
Okay, good. I'm sure it was a great interview. I saw a lot of stuff on Instagram about your trip. Your live shows. I know you did one with Cam Richards and Kelly Richards as well, which, gosh, that wave, I forgot about that wave of Cam Richards at Pipeline. That might
Insane.
be one of the most incredible rides I've ever seen. I'm not going to put it in this above Derek Hines' wave in the Pipe Masters. And of
Derek,
course, there's
Derek Ho.
Dark Ho, excuse me. And of course, there have been many other great rides at Pipeline. Look, it just provides wave after, winter after winter great rides. But the wave of Cam Richards, talk us through that. I'm sure you asked him about it, and
Oh
that's
yeah.
why you put it on there. So can you give me some insight into what was happening on that wave and maybe tell the listeners a little bit about that wave?
So it's Cam for his 19th birthday. His dad had an old Clark foam blank, and he made Cam a pipe gun for his birthday out of this old blank that was just like nobody orders guns. I think like Clark had closed. Kelly got like one final batch of blanks. There was a gun blank in it, and he lives in South Carolina. So he's like, that just didn't get used for over a decade, probably 15 years. And then Cam had a birthday coming up and he had been going to Hawaii a bit. So his dad's like, I'm going to shape him a gun. So he makes the gun, gives it to Cam. Cam goes to Hawaii, doesn't use it. And it's sat in somebody's, garage for a couple of years. Then Cam, he said, he was paddling out. I think it might have been his last day. He had surfed pipe a couple of days. Then it was going to be his last day before he went home for the trip. And he goes, I just got to go out and get a wave on that board just to get a photo of it. And so just for my dad, to do my dad kind of an honor for building me that board. So he paddles out and that wave came and I'd never heard this before, but there's an East Coast peak out there at pipe.
Is it
Like,
deep, like closer to off the wall?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's deeper than anybody wants to sit. And it's basically a second reefer.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be able to get the first reefers, and the third reefers are further out on the bigger days, but there's a second reef opportunity. And he said this was a closeout. So he said the problem with the East Coast Peak, it is literally like Brett Barley sits there and, whoever else, the
Yeah.
Hobgoods used to sit there.
Yeah.
Um, and nobody else wants a piece of it because it's essentially a closeout. And he said that wave, I mean, really, if you look at it, it is a closeout. And it's not a perfect wave. It doesn't hit the reef right. It's just full of problems. But that board allowed him to get in early, like you see, and kind of he gets into the two. He thought it was a closeout, but again, just get a Hail Mary kind of photo of it. So he pulls in and the bottom drops out. He kind of elevator drops down to the next level. But the board is so solid and big that he's able to just like hang on, just stay in position and boom, the board lands on the lower, road. And then he goes through that first section. Then there's a second section. The second one has a few steps in it as well. Just total chaos and pandemonium. And all he does is hang on for the ride and surfs it flawlessly. And then comes out at the end. And There's an additional video, which is Peter King was on the beach and filmed it. And so when Cam's walking up the beach, Peter gets the interview with him, like in real time. And Cam's full emotion, you know. So that's worth checking out too. And then Cam actually calls his dad from the beach and is like, "Hey, Dad, I just wanted to tell you, I think I just got the wave of my life." And Kelly was like, "Yeah, cool. Anyways, I'm at this house that you told me to come check out that you want to move into. I need to make a decision right now. Like, let me know if you want to move on this or not." And Cam's like, Dad, no, really. Like, we need to talk about this wave I got." And his dad kind of blows him off. So Cam films the video that was on Peter King's camera and then texts it to his dad in real time, like a minute after they got off the phone. Then Kelly calls Cam back and is like, "Oh my God, whoa, that's insane." And Kelly ends up crying on the phone, like with his kid. So it's a
Yeah,
real father-son story.
it really is. What a wonderful thing. And your interview was right around Father's Day, like it was last
Oh,
week,
it
right?
was. I
So
didn't even think of that.
there's that and the birthday. And look, trying to explain the wave to listeners is silly. Go watch the video. And if you haven't, I mean, a lot of us have seen it numerous times. And I remember seeing it and kind of just going, oh, that's cool. What a cool story. But I was really blown away by revisiting it. And the board itself, it looked like kind of a bigger board, like,
Hmm.
like 7.6
Hmm.
and, a little bit full, you know?
Completely, yeah. And Kelly's just amazing. And what I wanted to say too about both of them, but about Ricky, you mentioned that when you invited Ricky out for the boardroom show for the Icons of Foam, you didn't really have an awareness of who he was. And then he came out and he swept. He won that first event, he won the second event, he won a couple of others along the way. I asked Ricky what that did for his career, and it said it actually was huge for his career. He had a long-standing career on the East Coast, you know. At that time, he'd probably been shaping 35 years, so he was well established. And on the East Coast, everybody does know who he is. But the East Coast gets little love from the West Coast industry. And so him kind of coming out west and then dominating in the way that he did when he came back east, everybody was so proud of him. But then, of course, everybody on the West Coast now knows who he is and all that sort of stuff. So he said that was really important for his career and appreciated your role in that. But I also didn't have a lot of information about him. So throughout the interview, I learned a ton about him. And he was a professional surfer. He was on the USA team like in the 70s, I want to say, to go compete at Worlds event in Australia. He got into that as a kneeboarder. And the only reason that happened was on the East Coast events, if you're a longboarder, you'd sit around at the surf contest all day to surf a 30-minute heat, basically. So he's like, I'm just going to enter as many divisions as I can. So enter the kneeboard division, enter the shortboard division, just so you could surf more frequently throughout the day. But he
Yeah.
won the kneeboard division and then went and was able to compete in the Worlds event via that. But I mean, he had stories about going to the North Shore in the 70s, 80s, getting punched out on the beach, you know, living with Pat Rawson while he was there for 20 years, every winter, anyways, for 20 years. So he's a mild-mannered dude who never would ask for the limelight, but he's also very good at talking and telling stories. So once you force him to sit in the limelight, he goes long and shares all this incredible, rich history. So,
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how I landed on Ricky for the first. It was 2007. We were honoring Mike Diffenderfer in the Icons of Foam shaping competition. And I think for the very first year, what I did is I broke up shapers into regions. So, like, I had
okay.
East Coast and I had San Diego, Orange County, LA, Santa Barbara, Santa Cruz, Hawaii. Like I tried to, what I wanted to do was draw from every region. And so I made a list of guys, and I think I sent this list to some people, that I respected. I was like, who makes sense on here. And eventually we fell on Ricky Carroll, and he came out. And as you mentioned, he blew doors. He won the very first one, and and frankly, I knew he was a shaper, and obviously he knows what he's doing. But for him to come out and then win the second one, which was the caster shape off, which was in San Diego, which was a very San Diego centric shape off, the Icons of Foam honoring Bill Castor, and for Ricky to come into San Diego for the second year and kind of go, no, it wasn't a fluke,
Yeah.
boom. And as I mentioned last time, I rode that board that he shaped, the caster that he replicated for years. I loved it. In fact, you mentioned Hobgood. I remember either Damien or CJ paddling up to me one day on a big winter day and going, "What is that board you're riding? It looks incredible." And it wasn't me. Like the board was and still
Yeah.
is magic. But anyway, um, good for
Well,
you. It sounds like you had a successful live shows with Chaz, right? And Chaz was there, and you guys were,
yeah,
I
the
guess,
it was centered around
discourse.
the Florida Surf Film Festival, which was on the weekend. So we kind of booked these live shows at its in addition to that. Um, Part of the reason why Ricky, one of the reasons maybe that you did end up landing on him was he has the license for a bunch of other iconic shapers who wanted presence on the East Coast. So I think Diffenderfer was one of them back in the day. Takayama was one of them back in the day. Christensen currently, so he has his own line of boards, but then also has experience building these other styles and designs of boards as well. So he's really well rounded in all those ways.
And to his credit, the very first year, I had no idea we were going to do another one, And so he was like, "What do I do with the blank?" I'm like, "I don't know, keep it. It's yours." And then I realized I need to keep all of the winning boards for the
Totally.
legacy and the heritage of the show. And for years, I had all the boards except for the very first one. And Ricky would show up either at my show or I'd see it at Surf Expo and I'd be like, "Oh, that's the one that I need. That's the winning board." And I approached him and he's like, "Yeah, you know what? Absolutely." And I think he just gave it to me. I don't even think I had to pay for it. I think he's just like, "Here."
Super
And
generous, dude.
yeah.
Like he drove 2 hours from his home to come to our live show, and I told him, I'm like, we'll get you a hotel room, just. He's like, no, no big deal. He's like, I'm used to driving a contest through the middle of the night, or he's in a band too, so he's like, we're driving home at midnight anyways, all the time. It's fine. Um, so yeah, it
Well,
was
cool.
very generous.
What were some other highlights? One or two other highlights from your live events? Were anything that like pops out? Was there a
It's
crazy moment?
no, no, but it's always the same thing as the boardroom show, which is getting to meet our listeners. It's some of these people I've literally messaged with for over a decade,
Yeah.
and I have never even seen them. And so they show up in the room. It's like, oh, I'm Chris Kemp in Charleston, let's say. And I was like, I never even knew what you looked like. It's so good to finally put a face to the name, but you know their personalities because you have messaged with them for over a decade, 12 years in some cases. Um, Trip Thomas came to the Florida Surf Film Festival. I've been emailing with him since before I started the podcast, even because I used to do this video vlog series in Huntington filming surfing. It's like he used to message me on that thing. So, really, it's a small world and it's great to be connected on the internet, but it's even better to be connected in real life.
Yeah. And as we've mentioned before, something about East Coast surfers, the East Coast surfing community, one, it feels like they're kinder.
Yeah,
Two,
I agree.
they're hungrier. Like they're more hungry for content. They're more engaged in surfing, as a whole, it
Yeah.
seems. But maybe
Well,
that's a generalization. Yeah.
no, it's not. I think it's accurate. Each town is its own kind of small town feel, whereas Southern California is just
It's Southern California.
it's just this big metropolis and it's all
Yeah.
blended together and you
Yeah.
kind of because of that you just want your own space in this giant thing and so you keep people at arm's length and you keep your head down. There, Mike Wisnant, who you probably know, surfboard shaper out of Jacksonville, he and his wife came to dinner with us the night of that show, and every single person that walked into the room was like, "Hey, what's up, Mike?" They know everybody.
Oh yeah.
And he and his
Yeah.
wife have been dating since high school. I think they were 14 when they met,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Oh yeah, I build boards for those guys. I build boards for those guys." You just know everybody, and um, there's something really cool about it.
Yeah, Mike's a great guy and a legendary shaper in his own right. So that's cool. I'm glad you had such a good time over there.
Yeah, I love going out. And the final thing that I will say about it is I interview people from around shapers or whatever from around the world via Zoom. And it's great. And I feel like we get their story on the record and people get to know them through their story. But it's not the same as me going into the community and getting to know the community and them while they're in their community. So I think the interviews um, have the same value, but it has more value for me to go into the space and get to understand the lay of the land and the people in the land. I get more out of it. The end interview ends up probably being the same, but I personally get more enrichment doing it that way.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Something about
anyways,
connection and yeah, makes sense.
by the way,
Yeah.
you ever mix your AG1 into a smoothie?
I have done that before, but that's not something I regularly do. No.
I don't always, but I have been lately, and it's a bonus move for anybody who wants the extra kind of calories and make a meal out of it instead of just a drink. But
Yeah.
chia seed, bee pollen, hemp seed, bananas, strawberries, coconut water,
Wow.
and drinkag1.com/surf.
I'm inspired. I need to
Hmm.
get involved here with your smoothie. It sounds wonderful.
There you go.
I have a Who Said That, David, the section of the show, which I'm not sure if it has traction, if listeners like it or not. I just don't know. Maybe.
They do, and it's educational.
Okay, so this is the section of the show where I try to stump David with a quote from a figure in surf culture, and David tries to guess who it might be. So here's the quote, David, and I quote: Surfing Magazine thinks I sent them my best images, but I'd bought my first surfer at age 7 and never missed an issue memorizing all the photos, the captions, and all the photographers' names, even his. I spoke of my years of dreaming of shooting for Surfer Magazine and what it meant to finally be here in this office working with him. I said, I'm a Surfer Magazine guy through and through, even though I do occasionally send images to Surfing Magazine. I only send my very best images to you. Who said that, David? Was it one, Sonny Miller, two, Jimmy Medico, three, Warren Bolster, or four, Rob Gilly?
Wow. Bolster. Warren Bolster.
Wrong.
Mm.
No, this was maybe I should have thrown a date in there because Warren was at Surfer in the 70s. Actually, the editor of Skateboarder magazine, the very first editor of Skateboarder magazine. No, the answer is Jimmy Medico,
Mm.
Texas's own Jimmy Medico, from his great book Shaping Surf History.
Who was he talking about as being honored to work with them?
Jeff Devine. Jeff
Uh,
Devine. I almost threw that name in there. I pulled it out just to kind of make it. But look, all four of those, well, three of them. Warren Bolster was only the one that I think was, I thought that would help you. I thought you'd go, oh, no, he's too old for that. But I didn't really give a sense, context of time and space here. So anyway,
well,
Jimmy Medico.
while you're talking about Medico,
Mm-hmm.
um, I just interviewed Davey Smith.
Yes.
So they're both Santa Barbara guys. Medico was shooting in Santa Barbara, even though he's from Texas, but during that same era. And Davey Smith was pioneer of the aerial movement and is a name that people often don't mention when they talk about pioneers of the aerial movement. But I mean, truly the first crop of guys. It's hard to put a pinpoint on it, but it's
Well,
him. Go ahead.
I'll tell you, Tony Roberts might chime in here because I think somebody before him, just slightly before him, maybe the same time period, but I'm going to say slightly before him, was a Santa Cruz surfer. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, Kevin Reed.
Yeah, Kevin Reed, I think, might have been just slightly before Davey, but he might have been in that same time frame.
It's the same time frame from Davies telling of it. It was Kevin Reed, Keckley on the East Coast in Florida, and Davy Smith. And of course, information traveled slowly, so you can't pinpoint exactly when and where. But there was rumors of like, oh yeah, Kevin up north he's getting out of the wave, and doing airs. And of course, it was all based on skate influence. But um, he pinpointed 1975 as the first one that he landed officially, and that was at Rocky Point. So we'd have to
Oh.
talk to the other guys to figure out if they remember exactly the first one they landed, and then we could
Mhm.
cement it into history. But what else is interesting is that um, he is credited with being the first person to do a floater as a functional maneuver. And he even accepts the credit. I'm like, that's what I heard. Do you believe it? And he goes, yeah, he goes, I was the first one who I knew that was doing it. And the floater came after the air, interestingly. He was doing the airs before he did the floaters.
Yeah, okay. That's an interesting one. I think it could be semantics almost at that point. Like you're telling me nobody before 19 whatever. What year did he do the floater?
Air was 75, floater was 76.
I feel like guys were floating on whitewashes way before that.
Well,
But again, it's kind of like, what is he qualifying as a floater? What am I qualifying as a floater? You know,
exactly. Yeah.
so
So
it's semantics.
a floater is a functional maneuver where there's a section that's closing out,
Yeah.
getting over it to the other side of the wave. So you're right. People banked off whitewashes, and maybe the whitewash, it was an extended bank off of a whitewash, But he was saying, or I mean, other people were saying it as well. Like if you look at Warshaw's encyclopedia, he attributes Davy Smith as the first person. So it was a part of the conversation. Um,
Okay. I'm not
yeah.
here. I'm not an expert in floaters. Let's just
Yeah.
get that out there right away.
Yeah. But anyways, Medica was documenting a lot of that, is what I meant to say.
Actually, I am an expert in floaters. Now that I think about it. That's all I do is floaters. I'm good. I do. That 12 o'clock top turn is actually 8 o'clock. It's a floater.
Anyways, the other thing that's worth noting, just coming off of that conversation, was how much board design limited, like the desire to push the board design. The surfing itself was what pushed the board design, like what they were doing on a skateboard,
Well,
getting into the air, or the radius that they were able to turn a skateboard on. They'd go out in the water and be whipping and torquing their body in such a motion, but the board was only going 20% of the rotation, and so that was ultimately the catalyst for making the boards lighter, making them smaller, making them more maneuverable, all that sort of stuff.
yeah, it's funny. I I feel like, and Tony Roberts could chime in here, but I feel like Kevin Reed was doing them on single fins.
Air?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the first air that
Whoa,
Davey did,
I just pulled up something crazy.
the first air that Davey did was a single fin too
Okay.
on a Almeric. It was the first
Yeah.
time Channel Islands had ever gotten their boards to Hawaii, by the way. It was on that trip.
Oh, cool. And I remember Davey doing air or just ripping and doing airs and stuff. In I don't know if Jimmy Medico put out a movie. There was a movie, and I think Jimmy Medico was a part of it. And it had like claymation at the beginning, and it was all these Santa Barbara guys, and it was Tom Curran, and they went to like Emma Wood and Ventura overhead, and they surfed kind of like Ventura Harbor. But I remember there was footage of Davy Smith, and it was on a twin fin.
Hmm.
I'm seeing
Very
here,
cool.
and I don't look. This is from a year ago, so I don't know what's happened here, but it says that Kevin Reed got into some legal issues. I'm not going to get into it, but anyway. All right. Well,
Try to track him down for an interview.
yeah. Speaking of that, so I'm interviewing Greg Weber, Shaper, this afternoon. Can you help me out? Like, what are some questions that we should ask Greg Weber?
Probably not off the top of my head. I know he
Funny you
shaped.
say that because I'm having problems. I've got a list of things, but for as famous as Greg Weber is, I'll raise my hand and say I'm ignorant. I wish I knew more about him. I've actually called some other shapers and asked, and I think if I was in Australia, I would know everything about Greg Weber, but I need to do a little bit of research here before I go into this interview.
I interviewed him, so you could find that interview and listen to that as a jumping off point if you have
That's a
time.
great idea.
It was years ago, but I was messaging with him recently, and he was talking about boards that he made for Taj and boards that he made for Andy, and he was eager to tell me about the difference between those boards and how they performed specific to those guys surfing. So, I mean, he's shaped boards for
A
everybody.
lot of people. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, but I'm sure there's jumping off points from the interview that I did with him.
Yeah. I'll have to look into that for sure. That'll help a lot. And I've
Well,
got quite a few questions already lined up. I just thought maybe you had some
good news.
specific thing. And the Taj versus Andy thing is a good place to jump.
Good news is you don't have to ask much.
That's the sense that I'm getting.
Yeah. But if you have, a lot of information, you can ask the right things, and then he'll go
Right.
long into those.
Don't lead with broad questions, have very specific questions.
Yeah, exactly. Do you want to talk about lowers?
Yeah.
The event wrapped since we saw each other last.
Yeah, let me tell you what, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll talk. Welcome back to the Spit Podcast.
Thank you.
Hey, the Lexus Lowers Pro. Um, I thought it was wonderful, first of all. Let's not bury the lead. Yago Dora and Betty Lou Sakura Johnson won the event in super fun, rippable sized lower trestles. Um, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Kelly Slater's surfing at lowers during this event, his whole thing at lowers. Was it a travesty, a sham, and a mockery? A Travis sham mockery all mixed into one? Yes or no?
I wouldn't go that far. Um, I think it was exactly what I predicted that it would be. So I'd like a little pat on the back for that one. But not a Travis Sham mockery, no.
I agree. I know. I was just going to see how far you were going to go with that.
No, I think that's a bit far. I think realistically, his head isn't in it. We've kind of known that for a long time. His head is in great surf. And so when the waves are phenomenal and barreling, he gets motivated. And that's where he levels up and that's where he thrives. Anything less than, he's maybe servicing a little bit of obligation. Maybe he's servicing a little bit of ego. He still thinks he can, go toe to toe with these guys, but his heart's not in it in the same way. And the obligation here is it's an outer known event. And so I think that was just on it. Everybody's like, you got to get, but I think he would have been better used in the commentary booth. He should
Well,
come
he
to the
was there.
event.
He was there and he did great.
Exactly. Yeah. So that should have been his main role throughout that week. There was no need to see Kelly surf chest high lowers.
I wonder, on some level, let's say, for instance, hypothetically, he wasn't surfing competitively in the event. How many of us, myself included, would be like, how come Kelly's not surfing in the event? It's an outer known. Like, I would have been that guy. I would have. I want to
That's
see
fine.
Kelly surf in that event.
There's always going to be that guy. That guy's wrong a lot of the time. It's like
This
Chris
is
Cote
true.
is that guy. Chris
Yeah.
Cote is in the booth like, I put him on my fantasy team. I can't believe there's so many trolls saying that he shouldn't be in this event. How dare they? Kelly's the most winning surfer of all time. And I'm like, dude, just look at the stats and look at the performance. Like, you don't, I understand the fanboy thing,
Yeah.
but it's a little extreme at this point. It's a little sycophantic at
For
this
the
point.
record, yeah, I didn't put him on my fantasy team. I will go. I'm a little bit. I'm just slightly below Chris in the fanboy thing, but I am a fan, and I think a lot of people would. I think a lot of people would be like, "It's so lame of Outerknown not to put Kelly in the," like. And
That's
I
fine.
almost sense that there might have been some of that. Now, no, neither you nor I know what his obligations were, but his commentary after, like, I didn't really even want to surf today, which is what he said. I'm sort of paraphrasing,
It's what he
which
said.
which sort of took a little bit of I feel like I appreciate his honesty, by the way, but I feel like from a PR standpoint, the handlers were just going, "Oh man, all he had to do was not say that, and everything would have been great."
And look, we appreciate Kelly's honesty
Yes,
always. I
yes.
think, and so even though the PR and the people at the brand don't want to hear him say that, and the WSL doesn't want to hear him say that, we as fans do want to hear them say that. But realistically, he's finally, uh, I think we as fans also recognize you're 53-year-old man or whatever it is, and you got a new kid at home. You were in Australia having a great time with them and surfing. That's kind of what he said. We want you as fans to do that. You're too old for this. This is a young man's game. Go do that and enjoy that and just embrace that. The idea of having the ego involved and, still thinking that you need to prove yourself at this level is a little
Well, I don't
unbecoming.
even think he feels that way, right? Like
I think he
my sense
does.
is that he doesn't feel that way. It's just like you said, an obligation. Like he's like, all right, I guess I don't think that no, I don't know,
He
but I
has
don't think
enough
that,
clout to
yeah.
say, hey, let's renegotiate this obligation. I'll come
Oh,
and commentate.
okay. Yeah.
The
I
ego
agree.
part is saying, yeah, I'll put on a jersey and try to take down Ethan Ewing and Felipe. It's like, so if you were watching in the commentary booth saying Kelly should be out there competing, just watch one wave of Ethan Ewing and watch one wave of Griffin Colapinto, and then you go, yeah, Kelly probably isn't up to snuff with those guys. So the flip
But I'm,
side
I'm
of
not saying I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is before he surfs,
yeah,
before the event starts, I'm like, Kelly should be in the event. When the event goes off, you're like, oh yeah, maybe not, you
yeah.
know. Like there's an emotional attachment that wants Kelly to be there for all the legacy he has there and so forth and so on.
So the flip side of this is where I'm wrong, which is last week we were discussing Yago Dora looks slow. Jack Robinson looks slow. Boy, did they prove us wrong. And the difference was when the waves weren't kind of cranking, those guys are just giving it 50%. And we know when the waves get really good, that's where Jack separates himself from the crowd. I didn't necessarily know that or think that about Yago, but that is what happened with Yago as well. They just show up on any given day out there in the free surf and they don't have to prove themselves. They're like, we don't care. We're just going to kind of go in neutral and just go through the motions. But when the waves get head high, I'm going to do the biggest air that you've ever seen. Yago did, you know? And so that was kind of incredible to see, which those guys level up to their world champ potential, you know?
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of like a warm-up pitcher in baseball. They just go out there and get the arm loosened up. And
Yeah.
those warm-up surfs, they're just out there kind of feeling out the lineup, getting their lineups lined up, triangulating this palm tree with that freeway overhang and doing a few turns and feeling out their board. And they're just going through what they need to do professionally to be ready for, as you say, when it's 6 feet and they have a jersey on.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yago had his transitional air to landing to power turn. It was effortless. It was, I'll say mind blowing. It's cliche, but it was kind of mind blowing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And competitive surfing is back and as entertaining as ever, you know? And I think this really showed why lowers has value on tour. And we've missed it so much in recent years, you know, because having five people surf out there isn't enough. Like having the whole team out there, I feel like everybody leveled up. Seeing Joel Vaughn take out Italo, you know, Joel leveled up to a level that he hadn't been at before. So all of that happening, and I feel like for not the first time, but one of the times in recent years, the whole WSL progressed surfing. Like I felt for years, I was saying this, where the best surfing is happening off tour. Even the best airs are happening off tour, that sort of stuff. And now and I think naysayers or people in the WSL would say, no, we have Gabriel Medina. We have the best surfers in the world. And I was going, yeah, but you're putting him in the crap waves, you know? Like while Gabriel's doing that, Stab High's down somewhere else with big punt sections doing crazier airs. So this is an event where I felt like surfing was progressed at this event, and it was the best surfers in the world doing the most radical surfing in the world.
With jerseys on, which is a big difference between, you know, free surf aerial sessions.
Well, and the other difference between this or Stab High, which I used as an example, is the combination of maneuvers. So we saw a progression through combinations. So Yago Dora's massive frontside air landing seamlessly. I mean, he was just spinning like by braille, and his board was by braille, and he
And
landed it.
quick.
Yeah, quick. I mean, incredible full rotation, lands in the transition by Braille and just straight into a bottom turn and boom, you know? So the combination, Jack Robinson's 9 point ride, where I think it was an alley oop, it was like a couple big, you know, power hooks, alley oop, land, bangs it off the end. Like the combination was the progression that I hadn't, you know, as good as anything that I had seen previously.
Can I ask you a question?
Mm,
Why do they have Braille at drive up ATM windows?
great question. I think they just make the same ATM machine for the walk-up ones
Yeah, you
and
ruined
then
my
put
joke.
those in the drive-up ones.
Look, I'm going to read to you something.
Was there a punchline there?
That's it. That's
Oh
it.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah. That's what I thought.
who's okay? So I'm going to read to you from Surfer Magazine a sentence or two that August Howell wrote, and I think it's interesting. And August wrote, and I'm quoting Surfer Magazine: in beating regular footed heavyweights, Ethan Ewing, Griffin Colapinto, and Kanoa Igarashi in consecutive heats. Think about that. Ethan Ewing, Griffin Colapinto, Kanoa Igarashi in consecutive heats. Yago Dora became the first male goofy foot to win at these cobblestones since Luke Egan in 2002. That's 23 years since a goofy won lowers. And Yago had to drop the highest heat score of the event in the final, 17.9. In his lower trestles contest debut, Yago Dora made history. Or, David, my question to you, end quote, my question to you now. Did he, because Gabe Medina did win the Final Five final in 2021. So is there a separation? Is there a difference here?
No, I don't think so. Technically, yes, but I think in the history books, uh, Gabriel Medina's performances at lowers will be remembered.
Just the 2021 event would be the one that was called out by August Howell, by the way.
Yeah.
Like if you exclude the Final Five in 2021, which I think is worthy of you know making that distinction because he went through quite a few guys here.
It's a
Ethan
more,
Griffin and Kanoa. I guess you could go through Ethan Griffin and Kanoa. I'd be interesting. See, the thing is, Gabe, as the leader with the yellow jersey, I believe, didn't even have to go through just one surfer.
right.
Whoever met him in the final, best
Yeah,
out of three or best out of five, whatever it was.
it's a good point, but Gabe, I do remember Gabriel surfing in those events or that event. He was doing front flips and stuff. So it was so definitive that it stands out to me. The surfing stands out to me. I mean, again, it is an interesting point. I think the history books will still acknowledge Gabe.
Well, I think the history books will probably acknowledge both. They maybe there's a asterisk
Yeah.
of some sort.
What about I think Griffin or not Griffin, Kanoa Igarashi deserves a little bit of conversation here. I personally discount Kanoa throughout the season. I feel like his surfing is really, really fundamentally sound. He just doesn't maybe have the body weight and the power or something.
It's a little stale, I think, for whatever reason. And maybe
But
I'm biased, but because
I
we've seen so much of it.
maybe I don't know exactly what it is either. It's hard for me to pinpoint, but it wasn't there. Or he had that criticism was gone for me in this event. Like he was surfing as sparky, as powerful, as on point as anybody else, as progressive as anybody else. So I was like, man, Kanoa is actually looking unstoppable, actually.
Yeah, I would agree with that. As we mentioned, generally speaking, throughout the year, when I see Kanoa in a heat, I'm like, and you've done a great job of characterizing this. Guaranteed 7.2 on two waves, and he'll get through with a 14.5 or whatever. But it's just there's never an 8.5 or there's never a 9, or even when there is a 9, it just lacks a little flair. Like it, Yago's got flair for whatever
Yeah.
reason. There's some loop-de-loop arm mojo happening that's just it looks like he's dancing. And I sense that Kanoa has this real sort of like tactical approach to waves where he's like, I'm going to do this turn here. It's going to be insane. It's going to be super critical and all, but everything's tactically laid out. Like there's no sense of expression or freedom. And however, in this event, we did see that. We did
Yeah.
see sort of him kind of coming out of the shell and going, you know what? Hey, if I have fun, I'm actually going to do all those things that I normally do, but express myself, and I'm going to get it's probably noticed by the judges in that regard.
It looked less formulaic than normal. And yeah, definitely more like raw and unexpected turns. And I heard Kelly saying during his commentary that he's been working with Kanoa actually. So maybe it's a reflection of that. What a great guy for Kanoa to have in his corner.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah. So and now Kanoa sits third in the world. And so could be poised. I think so. Yago's an interesting story as we look at the back half of the year. He's got a straight shot. Rio, he's good at Rio. And then there's the only other lefts on tour are still in the foreground. So Chopu, and then of course Cloudbreak if he makes it into the top. I don't remember his performances at J Bay, but still, I think Yago has kind of a straighter shot into the top five. He's currently number two, but a straighter shot, let's say, to the world title than anybody else.
Yeah, it's funny. I brought up the final five in my notes here. It's Jordy, Yago, Kanoa, Elo, and Baron Mamiya. My question to you is, David, would this satisfy you if these five go to Cloudbreak?
Totally.
No
I kind of
No Jack Robinson.
I like Jack's been in the top five for years at the finals day. I like that it's mixed up. You know, as much as I love Jack Robinson as a surfer and Ethan Ewing as a surfer, I like that the top five is now mixed up and different, and I love those top five surfers.
Yeah, the top five, I was looking at it. I mean, you can't argue with the bottom five either.
Right.
Like 6 through 10 looks insane too. So any of those 10 is kind of a plus. Felipe would be in there if
So
you had to choose out of those 10 who you wanted.
not at Cloudbreak.
No, I agree, but I'm just saying, you know, of those 10, we've got three events left, right? We've got Rio, J-Bay, and Chopu.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a mix up. I mean, Ethan Ewing, Jack Robinson,
The
Griffin,
yeah, I mean
those would be fun. You can't lose, really.
when you look at J Bay, the 6 through 10 could win J Bay. Ethan, I think, has one out there. Jack could win out there. Felipe's one out there. Griff could win out there. Leo could win out there. So there is more opportunity for the mix up. And then Chopu will be the ultimate test of metal, you know? And Jordy sitting in first. J Bay, you could argue, is his home break. But Chopu, he's not, his backhand is his, you know, the chink in the armor. So we'll see. It's kind of exciting. I'm super excited about it actually. And then Baron
Yeah.
Mamiya looks like the most complete out of all. Like Baron Mamiya could win both those events, J-Bay and Chopu, and he could thrive at Cloudbreak.
Yeah, my sense is that Barron needs to sort of survive Rio. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like survive Rio. He'll be fine, or at least you feel good about him in 6 to 8 foot J Bay or 4 to 5 foot J Bay. And of course, anything at Chopu is going to be good for him. So we shall see. But you're right, it is exciting. I'm feeling excited. I think the fan base is feeling excited.
I was saying um competitive surfing is back. Like I'm more excited about competitive surfing than I have been in years. So the events have been great and the competition, everybody has leveled up. I would love to be able to see how John would fit into this conversation or Gabriel Medina. So hopefully this inspires them to come back with a, you know, fervor next year. So
Betty Lou Sakura Johnson bested Molly Picklum in the women's final. Simply, in my opinion, just a more committed rail game from Betty. She looked invincible. All the women, Molly too, they all surfed wonderfully throughout the event. Not all, but I mean the top women surfed wonderfully throughout the event. Molly just maybe not quite as critical as Betty Lou Sakura Johnson, but good stuff from the women. The final five women right now: Gabriella Bryan, Caitlin Simmers, Molly Picklum, Betty Lou, and Isabella Nichols.
I'm surprised to see Isabella Nichols in that position, but good honor. I'm surprised to see Caroline Marks out of that position, but you know,
Yeah.
actually, Aaron Brooks sitting in ninth is also kind of a surprise.
I know. And when I was looking at these final five, and when I was thinking about Cloudbreak, the two you mentioned, Carolyn Marks, Aaron Brooks, to me, I would like to see them in the final five at Cloudbreak. I think they would. I think we'd be I think we'd be disappointed as a fan
Yeah,
base to not see those two.
yeah. Well, did you have any thoughts on the Griffin Colapinto Felipe Toledo heat that blew
I
up the internet?
I thought it was incredible, of course, like everybody, and I think the judges got it right. I
Do
think they
you?
got it right. Yeah, it was. I don't know if you could surf that wave any better than Griffin did in the last dying seconds there. It was kind of peak, peak competitiveness.
See, I think the judges got the winner right in that heat on its totality. But in that exchange, I feel like Griffin didn't get the score. When I was watching it in real time, knowing that he needed a score, seeing what Felipe just did, and then Griffin gets the next wave, I was like, that score is gonna come short. But he probably got two better waves throughout the course of the heat. But it's as close as you could possibly get for a subjective sport. You could argue it either way based on the judging criteria.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder how much the fan base affected the judges. I think there's something to be said for that. My good friend Jeff Baldwin was on the beach calling the event for the beach consumers, for the fans that were there on the beach, and he said it was pretty rowdy
Yeah.
um, when all that went down.
It's hard to argue against too. Like if you're gonna argue that the judges got it wrong, what is your argument? And it's not definitive, you know. Again, it is a subjective sport, and it really comes down to who you like, whose style of surfing you like better. So there's 50% of the people who like Felipe's style of surfing on those waves better, and 50% who like Griffin's better. But to me, it was equivalent. It was like they are doing equally good surfing at their to their style of surfing.
Yeah. So interesting that style, you're kind of basically saying, well, then style is really where it's going to break down. Whose
Style's the
style do
only
you like better?
style's the only word I can use, but maybe approach is another word. Whose approach to riding those waves do you like better?
Yeah.
And they were equal. They were equally as impressive and difficult to accomplish. So Griffin got the nod that time. He's lost many, many other times this season. Didn't get the nod.
You know, it'd be interesting, say 3 months from now, take those two waves, pull them out, take away any
Yeah.
context, and put them in front of some people and go, which one's better? That would be a fun experiment to do.
Who are those people?
I don't know, but it could be, it, I don't, I don't know, but I think that would be an interesting thought experiment to strip
Well,
away context and just go, boom, here's the two rides. What are their scores?
Jimmy Kane was shooting the heat from on the beach, more positioned where the left is. So you're looking back at the rights from behind, tracking the rights. And he posted each of their waves surfed in that heat on Instagram. So you could just watch, kind of like you're saying, those waves. And his caption said, "No, no one agrees on anything these days, but I'm just happy to watch Felipe Toledo and Griffin Colapinto surf a heat. Notice Felipe clapping for Griff at the end of that last exchange. Both are class acts." And left it at that. Didn't pick a winner, didn't say his opinion. And I kind of agreed that was what we should walk away from that heat with.
I don't agree with that. I mean, I appreciate his approach, Jimmy Kane, but I mean, we're in a competition. We need to determine who gets through the heat, who surfed it better. This, I just, it's kind of like, hey, let's just split the money. Let's all agree to just split the money and call it good. And then it's kind of like, well, why are we wearing the jerseys? Why are
Yeah,
we all here? We're here to determine a winner. I think we need, I think, I think making some sort of opinion about it is a good idea. I'm
I
not
think he
doubting. I think he's right. They are both class acts. It is very hard to determine. Um, but
I think
I'd
he
like to
has a
know who Jimmy Kane thought advanced.
and I think he has an opinion. I think him posting that was in response to all of the consternation on the
Yeah,
internet after the
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Him trying to throw water on the fire, just say, "Hey, everybody, let's have the bigger picture here," which is we're grateful that we got to witness that.
yeah. Okay.
Scott's not.
Well, I think the
Um,
bigger picture is who won. Not. I think we're all in agreement that yeah, this is great. But
well, somebody already
bigger
did win,
picture is who won.
and somebody was already deemed a winner, and the professionals decided that. So Jimmy's saying, "That's already done. Now let's all chill out and be grateful for the experience."
All right,
But
fair
I'm
enough.
sure he does. I'm sure he does have an opinion about who
Well, I
won.
would like to see it. I think Jimmy Kane's actually that. Um, you know, his Instagram would be a great place to bring this back. Pull all of the. You got to take away all of the context. Just post the two clips and you know who do you think did better or something, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I think in 3 months, believe it or not, we will have forgotten exactly these two ways. Like it won't be ingrained in our psyche as much. And yeah,
Set
just a
a
thought.
calendar reminder, and let's do this in 3 months from now. I'll see you in September.
Well, tip
Uh,
of the cap to Jimmy Kane and all the content creators that are putting out good stuff like that. So
well, I want to, as Rio starts in 2 days, and I love this rapid succession of events. I feel like we came off of, was it El Salvador or was it Australia? Came out of Australia straight into lowers, straight from lowers into Rio, and it's kind of exciting to have weeks or, events week after week. But I wanted to read a little background history on Rio or Brazil at large, if you're down for that, Scott, for a little
yeah,
educational
please,
purposes.
please.
From, of course, EOS.surf, the Encyclopedia of Surfing. By the way, I got to spend the weekend with Matt in Florida at the
Oh,
Florida
cool.
Surf Film Festival. Yeah,
Oh, good.
he came out. He brought his son Teddy. Sam George actually came out, so I got to spend the weekend with Sam as well, which was actually really nice.
Yeah.
Um, I'll tell you a funny story about Sam real quick.
Hmm.
We were hanging out on the beach. Waves are small, you know. Sam grabbed a bodyboard. How old do you think Sam is?
Sam is probably 68.
Okay. 68-year-old man running full speed with a bodyboard, jumping, landing on his torso, and skimming across the skim section on the water.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
But how impressive is that? I'm like, I stopped doing that when I was 12 because I felt like it was just a little, it was going to hurt my back or something.
Yeah,
He's 68 and still going and was good at it. He would travel 50 yards down the beach on the skim section.
that's cool. I think I've told you I spent, you know, hours in a car with both Sam and Matt some 25 years ago in El Salvador. And boy, the stories,
Yeah.
just those two trading barbs is pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, really fun weekend with those guys. Anyways, back to Brazil. Surfing was introduced to Brazil at Rio's Copacabana Beach in 1928. 1928, so almost 100 years ago now. And when an unknown American took to the warm blue waves on a redwood board, Rio native Paulo Paguirca rode a hollow paddleboard at the same beach in the early 30s. And in 1939, a pair of Rio teenagers constructed the first Brazil-made surfboard by following a do-it-yourself manual in Popular Mechanics magazine. Skin diver, I'm gonna butcher all these names. Adriano Colasanti imported the first foam core surfboard to Brazil in the 1960s, just as Rio craftsman Beltraro started mass producing plywood paddleboards called, not going to even pronounce it, but plywood paddleboards. Then Australian surf traveler Peter Troy arrived at Rio in 1964 and showed the locals how to build foam boards at Brazil's first board making factory opened the following year, which was in the Rio suburbs. Troy also introduced local surfers to the latest high performance turns and maneuvers, of course. Brazil's first surf club was founded in 1965 by Rio locals, and the following year, with help from visiting American surfers Mark Martinson and Dale Struble, along with filmmakers Greg McGillivray and Jim Freeman, the club organized the Brazilian Surfing Championships, and that was the country's first contest. It was won by Jorge Bailey and Fernando Guerrera. Surfing's popularity in Brazil skyrocketed during the following decade, the 70s. The first official Brazil national championships were held at Ubatuba in 1972. The first professional pro event was held in Rio 3 years later, and Rio surfers Pepe Lopez and the country's first surf star was a finalist in the 1976 Pipe Masters and the 1976 Waimea 5000, a world pro circuit event held at Aprador. Brazil Surf was the first surf magazine, and there was a TV show in 1982. Competitive surfing, of course, became a defining element of the Brazilian surfing in 1986. Saw the founding of the Association of Brazilian Surfing Professionals, as well as the Hang Loose Pro, an international pro event held at Florianopolis. Brazil also hosted the 1994 World Amateur Surfing Championships and the 2000 World Surfing Games. Brazilian surfers like Flavio Padarats and Fabio Gouveia had, by the late 80s, given Brazil a formidable presence on the pro circuit. The domestic surf industry, meanwhile, led by Hang Loose Surfwear, Moramai Wetsuits, and Redley Beachwear, was versatile and competitive enough to obviate almost completely the need for imported goods. Brazilian surfers flourished on the pro circuit through the 90s and the 2000s with Padarats, Gouveia, Pedersen Rosa, Victor Ribas, Maria Tavares, and Jacqueline Silva, all at one time or another finishing in the year-end top 10. The 2010s saw the arrival of a new crop of hyper-talented Brazilian pro surfers, including a perennial top 5 finisher, Adriana de Souza, possible future world beater, Gabriel Medina, and Jadson Andre, Alejo Muniz, and Miguel Pupo. Carlos Burle became the country's first top big wave rider, winning the 1998 Reef Brazil Big Wave World Championships, as well as the 2002 Nissan Xterra XXL Big Wave Awards. Maya Gabeira was his tenacious protege and became one of the world's best female riders in the mid-2000s, regularly taking honors at the XXL Awards. Meanwhile, Brazilian surfers in general, were often derided by surfers from other countries as loud, pushy, and rude. It's a cultural thing, Rio pro Rene Rocha explained in 2000. In Brazil, the only rule is survival of the fittest, so we've got to be aggressive in the water and we learn to fight for waves, end quote. As of 2012, so 13 years ago now, Brazil was home to approximately 1 million surfers. There was around 1,000 surf shops. There's three major surf mags, one world tour contest, and then a dozen or so lesser international pro contests, and of course, countless pro and amateur events. End quote.
Well, I'm just Googling the crap out of Pepe Lopez, who was in the Pipeline Masters in 1976. He sort of surfs like Jerry Lopez. He's got a full Jerry Lopez mojo going.
How about that?
Yeah, kind of
Similar last names.
smooth and stylish. But yeah, thanks for the insight on Brazil as we're 2 days away. Get your survival picks in if you're still hanging in there. And of course, your fantasy surfer teams as well.
Yeah. Um, I wanted
I,
to just go ahead.
yeah. Well, I was just quickly say that um, for whatever reason, the Brazilian event gets kind of poo-pooed, but it, as I recall, I'm always kind of blown away by how good it is competitively. Like it actually turns into a pretty good event.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the waves are hit and miss. It seems
Yeah.
like there's always like half a day where the waves look really good and you see some really big scores, but there's 4 days of junk, you know?
Yeah.
Um, One thing that I will, while we're on the WSL,
Hmm.
Stab Magazine did an interview with Graham Stapleberg,
Hmm.
and there was one portion of that that I thought was worth reading to you
Hmm.
on air. He said that one thing that people can't truly appreciate is what the Ziffs, Dirk Ziff and Natasha Ziff, have done for professional surfing. Uh, for listeners who are unaware, they are the owners of the WSL. So Graham says you can't fully appreciate what they've done for professional surfing. I live and breathe it. I've been on both sides and I've seen what has had to happen, and they basically saved professional surfing. International tours don't exist in other action sports, and you don't get the prize money that we offer, where the athletes are guaranteed certain prize money for not winning a heat. In other board sports, or that doesn't happen in any other board sports. You don't even get that in golf or tennis. If you don't make the cut, you're gone. So I just wanted to acknowledge that because for all of our criticisms of the WSL, the owners have been taking a loss on it for a long period of time and making sure that even the losers are making a living.
I absolutely 100% agree with this that I don't think, believe it or not, I don't think Dirk Ziff gets enough credit. I think that if he had pulled out, say, 3 or 4 years in and went, yeah, it was a stupid idea, I'm out. Not good return on investment, I'm out. At this point, he's just gifting us this thing. He's just going, here you go. And it's pretty phenomenal. It deserves to, um, frankly, like I'm all in on giving this guy more than kudos. Like I
Yeah.
think that on some level he deserves some sort of uh I don't know if it's a prize or acknowledgement. And by the way, he's not seeking it. He doesn't need it. He's not like raising his hand and giving me the, asking for the Nobel Peace Prize. He's just doing this out of the goodness of his heart. And I think, frankly, because he loves pro surfing, he is infatuated by what these athletes are, like the Stephanie Gilmores of the world. I think Dirk and Natasha Ziff. And by the way, I've been the first one to kind of beat them down, if you want to say that. I mean, I wasn't mean spirited or anything, but for years, both of us, David, were kind of like, when are they going to pull the plug? When are they going to pull the plug? And we're just waiting for that to happen so we could kind of go, see, I told you. And maybe I'm simplifying it, but at this point, I'm 100% behind what Graham Stapleberg's saying. The Ziffs deserve, um, they're right there. Um, if there's a Mount Rushmore of administrators of competitive surfing, you could put Fred there, Rarick there, the Ziffs there, um,
Rabbit.
Rabbit there. They're
Well,
definitely one of the five figureheads that would be on that Mount Rushmore, in my opinion.
I think your opinion is a little bit colored by his guitar collection.
No, no,
You
it's
just
not.
love him extra now.
Well, First of all, he gifted his entire guitar
Exactly.
collection to the Museum of Modern Art. So,
Heavily colored then.
well, I'm just saying that what he's doing for surfing is as equal a gift or more a gift to us. And he needs to be acknowledged beyond acknowledgement. He and his wife should be on the Mount Rushmore of professional, competitive administrators.
My criticism during the ELO era was if you're gonna run it, great that you're putting money into it, but if you're gonna run it off into a ditch and then toss the keys of the car back to us, there's gonna be a lot more work and cleanup to do to get it out of that ditch. And so I'm glad that they pulled the car back onto the road and they've got it going on the straight and narrow again. And that would have been a loss for him in terms of financial, and that would have been a loss for us in terms of cultural. So yeah, I do agree with everything that you've just said, especially in light of the, you know, recent changes to the tour. I'll also state I liked that interview because it was so much more transparent than previous interviews with WSL uh, execs. You know, the one from a couple of years ago with Jesse Miley Dyer that was just a press release and then Sam had to apologize for. This was the exact opposite of that. This was Graham just stating things the way that they are, just full kind of transparency. And so I really appreciate that change in tone as well.
Now, there could be some people that chime in that are listening to this and they're like, yeah, but isn't this just a big write off for him anyway?
Yes,
And yeah, the answer is yeah, it is.
for
You know,
For Ziff, the
yeah,
billionaire. Yeah.
for Ziff.
No,
But
I
I
don't
don't
mind
know
that.
I don't know how he's handling. I don't know that I'm not a finance guy. I don't know how it works exactly. But what do you say to those people, David, that are like, that's BS. He doesn't deserve anything. It's just a big write off.
I think that um, if you're going to write something off, at least fund the charity that needs the help. So I'm glad to be the benefactor, the beneficiary of the benefactor. And the other argument would be, you know what Ziff likes more than write-offs is making money. And so he would prefer that this was generating money rather than losing money. And so I think that his interest is to make it generate money. But if it's going to lose money, then of course, try to take the write off for the other businesses that are making money. But I think the intention is for it to make money.
And I would also suggest to you along those same lines that he wants it to make money, as you said, so that he can then hand the keys to a clean car with a clean bill of health with no lemon laws on it,
Yeah.
and let then the powers that be move the vehicle of professional surfing forward.
Yep. Totally agree. In the interest of time, we've got to wrap this up, but I do want to acknowledge Surfrider Foundation, of course. We're talking about the Trestles event. Trestles was a great event, partially because the Surfrider Foundation fought and organized the community to fight the legal battle to stop the toll road that was slated to happen about a decade ago. And that's part of their mission is just public beach access for all. And so go to surfrider.org, support the cause. The ocean needs more friends. And if you're using the ocean, benefiting from the ocean, and not supporting Surfrider, shame, shame.
And I will make this quick, but the Boardroom International Surfboard Show is coming to Del Mar in October, the 11th and 12th. It's presented by US Blanks. And this year we're honoring Eric Arakawa as our icon of foam, legendary Hawaiian shaper who's made boards for so many great pipeline surfers. But amongst those that I'll acknowledge now, Ronnie Burns, Derek Ho, Michael Ho, Andy Irons, Jack Robinson, like I said, many, many others. And so that's coming up. And we've got a great exhibitor list. It's fascinating. It's getting filled up here. And by the way, my Trees Wax must see moment is this book right here. We the Drowned. Read this book, David. Karsten Jensen. It's an incredible book. By the way, the
Great
Boardroom.
cover art on that book.
Let me show that again.
Whimsical.
There's some mysticism in this book.
Okay.
Check these out.
Show me.
Boardroom t-shirt.
Fish and chips.
Yeah, those are going to be
Hey,
available.
they got the art. Does that say Dora rules on the Malibu wall? It's supposed to say Dora lives. Did they get that wrong, or did somebody update the Malibu wall?
Anyway, the next
Dora does rule too. Beautiful icons of foam support surf labor. Beautiful shirts, man. Cool,
pretty cool.
cool
And then
graphics.
I think you'll like this one. This is
Okay, one more. New
one
merch at the
more.
Boardroom show. I love him, but he buys his surfboards at Costco.
So those boardroom t-shirts are going to be available at surf shops, I believe, as well as I think Spit Podcast t-shirts
That's right.
are going to be
We
available.
we need a list of the surf shops that they're going to be available at, but yeah, we'll advertise that as soon as they're ready. But yeah, cool graphics, dude.
Hey, thanks for bearing with me there. Those t-shirts, I wanted to show those out. And yeah, so David, anything else?
That is all I got for this week.
Until next time, adios and aloha.
Let's hit a quick waterways ad. All right,
Dude,
Bass, Mexico. Now's the time to go to Mexico. From our buddies at Waterways, they said it's less crowded than it has been. It had like a real, resurgence in the last decade, but in the last year or two, seems like people are going elsewhere. So you want to get down to Salina Cruz area? Now is the time.
look, full disclosure, the direct flight to Hualtuco is gone. You have to fly through Mexico City. This is both a good thing and a bad thing. It's bad because it takes a little bit longer to get there, but it's good because not as many of us are going because we were spoiled. That quick 3.5, 4 hour flight from TJ to Hualtuco is over. So that's why it's less crowded. So a minor inconvenience for less crowded waves, waterways travel, call them up or email them or just go onto their website and
Yeah.
they'll direct you on how to get involved. But Selena Cruz, it's been firing too. There's been great videos on Instagram showing how to get there.
If you talk about like countries that you could travel to for surfing, it's hard to think of a better one than Mexico in terms of like food, waves, culture, lifestyle. And we've had it right
Ease
at our
of
finger.
access from Southern California, ease of access.
That's the thing. So you and I have had it at our fingertips forever, and so it's almost like I start thinking exotic of like where can I go around the world, but it's like Mexico's it. It's too easy.
Yeah,
So
for sure. Guaranteed.
yeah,
Waterways Travel, check them out. Our good friends Chris and Brian and their crew there. They're going to take care of you.
yeah, waterwaystravel.com.